As the T20 World Cup 2024 reaches its climax, the 4 semi-finalists have been determined: India, England, South Africa and Afghanistan. Afghanistan's explosive and brilliant performance has secured their place in the semi-finals for the first time in any ICC tournament. Today's match was crucial as only one of Afghanistan, Bangladesh or Australia could advance. And now with Afghanistan's victory, both Australia and Bangladesh were knocked out, were eliminated. Afghanistan's bowlers, especially the fast bowler Naveen-ul-Haq, who took 4 crucial wickets, played a very pivotal role in this historic achievement for his side. Looking ahead to the semi-finals now, South Africa will be facing Afghanistan in the first match, while India will take on England in the second. Both matches are scheduled for the 27th of June, with South Africa and Afghanistan clashing in Trinidad and Tobago, and India versus England in Guyana. The winners of these exciting contests will then advance to the final, setting the stage for a thrilling conclusion to the T20 World Cup 2024. Joining us at this point is Sunil Yashkalra, founder Indian Sports Fan. We also have Noel David, former Indian cricketer, live with us. Paul Dennett, cricket journalist from Australia, is joining us live. Tanmay Mishra, former Kenyan cricketer, is also live with us on the broadcast. Sunil, it is now the crunch time of the tournament with the top 4 decided. Over to you for analysis of what lies ahead.
Thank you, Uday. It's a fantastic day at the home of cricket here in Dubai, which is the ICC headquarters, and we're kind of mini celebration since morning, and I think in the evening the crescendo will go further. I've got 3 of the eminent panelists you've already introduced: Noel David, Tanmay Mishra. These guys have played at the highest level, and Paul Dennett is one of the biggest voices of the game, an Aussie. And so my question to him: how has the past few hours been with you in your life? Is it the most depressing hours of your life, Paul Dennett?
Hey, Sunil. It's been, I'm wearing my David Boone shirt because I needed something to comfort me and to feel solid and secure after such an emotional period, because the game was on, the India game was on at 12:30 our time. It went through till 4 or 5 in the morning. A few hours later, the Afghanistan-Bangladesh game was on, which went forever. It just on and on and on it went. And every time it seemed like Australia was just about to make it, something would happen and our hopes would be dashed, only to be then raised up again, even to the point where right before the end of it, Australia briefly were in the qualification position. If they do, they do the live ladder of the English Premier League, that briefly when Bangladesh went ahead on Duckworth-Lewis, it looked like Australia was still going to make it. Not that we deserved to. We deserved to be sent home. And I tell you what, on the group chat today, Sunil, you're part of it as well. Didn't the English fans have a happy day? Oh, everyone is laughing about Australia. It's so nice to see how popular we are with the rest of the world. But look, congratulations to Afghanistan. It was, as much as I was really, really disappointed to see the Aussies out, it's a wonderful moment for cricket, and it's hard not to feel fairly exultant for them. And looking at the scenes in Kabul, it's absolutely incredible. So well done, Afghanistan. And yeah, I've had better days. Let's put it that way, Sunil.
Tanmay, let me roll back the years. I've also got Tanmay Mishra, the man who's played the World Cup in 2011. Let's roll back the years. The year is 2003. Kenya goes into the semi-final. The year is now 2024. Afghanistan plays the semi-final. Do you see some parallel here? Go on. Tanmay Mishra.
I thought I had jinxed for Afghanistan. Now they've proved me wrong, and now there's another associate that has reached the semi-finals. And make no mistake, the difference between us and them, they have beaten a lot more competitive test team playing nations. Back then in 2003, because the way the system was, we got a couple of points when New Zealand didn't come to visit us. But Afghanistan beat New Zealand, Afghanistan beat Australia, and Afghanistan rightly yesterday defended a very low total. And they've been very exciting. I'm so proud as an associate player of what Afghanistan has achieved. And this just goes to show that, now there's a pendulum shift in Asian cricket. If we were to talk about who are the most powerful teams in Asia, we'd get a mixed bag of answers. And all because of the consistency Afghanistan has shown. And, it's a very proud moment for Afghanistan, but as well as associate players for them to reach this height. And I couldn't be more happier for them.
Well, there's a tectonic shift happening. No, David, we've heard this for far too long. Do you think Afghanistan now figures in the top three? And perhaps another question that needs an answer, and that's a big elephant in the room. When do you think Nepal is going to make that pivotal shift?
Hey, Sunil, if you as you roll back, if you take Afghanistan, 2017, I was telling this previously, and I was spoken to Tamil. 2017, they become the ICC members, Afghanistan.
Right.
Within 7 years of period, the transformation of the cricket grew to a greater heights. From getting a membership to the semi-final, you can imagine the road to this. The hard work they have put in. Beating the best sides in the world. Their players playing a lot of leagues around the world. Getting that experience of game. There is no domestic fixtures for them back at home. They don't have any competitive cricket happening and all that. But these guys, because of their hard work, their dedication, their motivation, the intent to grow and to secure themselves at a spot where they are now. I have told this before, and I'm telling again, I will not go back with my words. I think down the line, within 3, 4 to 5 years, I will see them at the top 2 also. It's not only 3, because the way they are playing their cricket, I think has been excellent. The passionate they are. If you see the guys today's game, you could see it in their face, how eagerly they wanted to win this game. Everyone were on the toes when, as Paul Dinett said, on and off the field because of rain, because of disturbance and all. But they kept their cool, they kept their mind on the game itself. There was no distraction. They were looking forward for this victory. I think this team will go further. And if you're talking about Nepal, I think Nepal also is coming close to them. Even they are growing because their league system, they have a few league matches happening, league system happening there in Nepal, but not as competitive as what we have in India. But if you see the way they have presented themselves this World Cup, nearly went on to beat South Africa, close match against this. I think they are also growing in structure, but very slowly, because they've been, the under-19s are good. The structure is laid recently. They have a coach who is from the India was, and now I think they are also growing, and I hopefully would love to see the neighboring countries, dominating the world of cricket.
Very interesting point you made. Just to Paul Dinett, on a very lighter note, 1996, Australia refuses to travel to Sri Lanka. That's all right, but they get beaten by them in the World Cup final. That was ODI. Few years ago, Australia, maybe last year, refused to travel to Afghanistan and hold a series because of the women issues, equal rights and equal issues. Do you think Afghanistan was penting it up like what Sri Lanka was doing when the Muttiah Muralitharan saga happened with Darrell Hare?
Well, I mean, that is a coincidence, I suppose. But I don't want to kind of do anything other than celebrate Afghanistan today. But it needs to be said that they should have a women's team, and it is a great disappointment, and it is wrong that they don't. And you can argue that Australia's stance is hypocritical, that we refuse to play them in bilateral series, but we do play them in World Cups. But really, the ICC should be standing up and saying, unless you have a women's team, you're not playing at all. Now, I don't want to get into that too much today. It's a day for celebration for Afghanistan cricket. They have done fantastically well. I look forward to them becoming even better as the years go by. And I don't want to come across as a bitter Australian. As I said, Australia are eliminated because we deserved to be eliminated. We ultimately just weren't good enough. You can't lose 2 successive games at the pointy end of the tournament and expect to continue. It would have been wonderful from an Australian fan's point of view if we had been able to continue and sneak into the semi-finals. But, the right result was not by an enormous amount. Australia weren't terrible. Rohit Sharma played amazingly. That kind of was the difference between the two sides, and things could have otherwise have been different. And Bangladesh, if they didn't have the carrot of being able to get in them themselves, if they'd been able to just chase that run score down traditionally, maybe they would have got the runs. So there's lots of ifs and buts. Ultimately, it is wonderful to see Afghanistan through to the semi-finals.
Well, absolutely. Afghanistan, it's time for Afghanistan. And Shakira was to sing another song. I think this would be it. Coming back on the coaching part, we see Jonathan Trott, and this is for Noel David. Noel, Jonathan Trott, as a player, went through mental issues with mental sickness and at the mental health issues. Now, suddenly they've got Bravo assisting. Previously, they had Ajay Jadeja, your colleague, your friend, your childhood mate, coaching the team. Do you think this team has become wiser playing the global leagues, considering that 8 of their current players actually play in the Indian IPL?
Of course, I said this before also, because you get that experience of playing when you play around the world. They not only play IPL, they play the Big Bash, they play the Canada League, they play the Caribbean League, they play everywhere. They play the PSL also. So that experience which they bring into the team is key and very important, because they can share it to the guys who don't get that opportunity of playing. Like Rashid Khan, Nabi, Noor, all these guys, they get that opportunity of playing. The bigger guys get the opportunity of bowling to the other guys, and that is the one thing which helps this team to be so formidable. I think the coaching staff, as you said, Jonathan Trott, Ajay Jadeja, who was there, now it is John. I think their experience is also being put into them. What cricket they have played. We all know what Ajay was. We all know what Bravo is and Jonathan Trott. I think all this, if you put it into one, I think they are becoming a threat to this world of cricket.
Well, absolutely. Afghanistan is becoming a threat, not only to the lower number of teams. Today, they've displayed what they can do to the world champions, the reigning champions, in whatever format of the game we look at. We will be discussing about the future of the tournament, the semi-final and the final. But today, it's time to reflect and especially look at the innings of India, especially against Australia. We've got 3 of the eminent guests with us. We've got Noel David, Tanmay Mishra, played the 2011 World Cup, and Paul Dinet. If there was a World Cup for podcasters, he would definitely qualify. Unfortunately, his team couldn't today. But let's take a step back and talk about the game between India and Australia. Paul, would just take us through how it started, what was the morale, how was it, and you as a podcaster, what were you going, emotions, because there were pretty ranges of emotions, I'm sure.
Well, from an Australian point of view, it started well when Kohli got out, but then it was just, there are days, I think, when some players just play so well that there's not much you can do about it. And I think that Rohit Sharma, looking at it now, 92 off 41 on a pitch that is very difficult. People have struggled to score runs on it through the entire tournament. You talk about some of the best innings ever played. I don't think this one will get remembered because it fell short of the 100. It won't get remembered in that absolute top draw. I'll tell you what, though, it was a pretty good innings. I mean, some of the hitting that he played, some of the shots that he played were spectacular. And there's no doubt that was the difference between the sides. And I sort of said at the start of the tournament, I was really disappointed that Australia didn't pick Jake Fraser-McGurk. And up until that game, I think the selectors could have said, well, the proof is that we've done okay. But we had Josh Inglis, who didn't play a game, and we could have easily had him as the travelling reserve and had Jake Fraser-McGurk coming out in the second innings and attempting to replicate what Rohit Sharma had done. It probably wouldn't have happened because it is very rare for someone to play that well. So that was spectacular. And it was also a great battle between him and Josh Hazlewood. Josh Hazlewood bowled sensationally, another performance that will get overlooked. But yeah, ultimately that innings propelled India ahead. Australia threatened at times, but it never quite felt as an Australian fan that we were going to get over the line.
Well, Noel David, you finally managed to call Josh Hazelwood and not Hazelnut, like you've been referring to. But do you think this is the new Australian side that loses too many catches, and that's why you can't register too many players with their names like what they used to be?
Hey, I was just telling, Paul, this is surprising that what I've seen this tournament that Aussies dropping catches, the fielding side, was not up to that standard way we all expected. If you take back years back, Ricky Ponting, one of the magnificent, fielder. You take Maxwell himself. He also been, you drop. I think there was that key point missing in the fielding was that was it that sight of the ball or the pressure came into them or what went wrong with them? God only knows, because I never expected the Aussies can do such things, because they've been brilliant all the time on the field. They have won matches because of their fielding and their catching. There have been splendid catches taken during the World Cup in 2023, which gave them that trophy. For me, I think sometimes it happens. It might, but it was happening too regularly, for which it let down the the Australians.
Tanmay Mishra, we're usually accused of ganging up against Paul Dennett. Of course, our partner in crime, David Brooks, is not here. But did you also see the same kind of lapses in Australia on a consistent basis, whether it was bowling and fielding, or is it three of us, me, Noel David, and David Brooks?
No. I think somewhere down the line, the Australian standard that we've all seen for a better part of 3-4 decades sort of was lagging over here. I have a lot of questions regarding this, but the standards we saw there in terms of fielding and bowling, I don't think so. They were quite up to it. Something they are the benchmark in international cricket, whether you like it or not. They have the most ICC tournaments, and when you set those standards for them to come into this tournament, they've really asked us pundits to ask a lot of questions of them. Fielding, catching, just their tactics, selection. They almost sneaked into semi-finals, which is not the Aussie way. They've got their fist and chest pumping high up whenever they've gone into tournaments. So somewhere down the line, you've got to look at the leadership. I thought Pat has done brilliantly. I was just asking Paul that question, that what's the feel like in Australia regarding leadership? Because this is a man that has won ICC Test Championship. He's won the 50 overs. So suddenly, I don't know what the feel is, but I think Australian Cricket Board, I'm pretty sure will be doing review. But yeah, they just weren't up to the standards in this tournament.
Also that, we've eulogized Australia since 1987 when they won the Reliance World Cup. And they've been dominating as the thought leaders and the creators of the leadership role that they've created for themselves since then. What are the negatives that you see? And you've been a cricket romantic yourself since the 80s, 90s. So what is it that is missing? How is the mojo missing in this team?
Well, I think that ultimately it is just a couple of bad games, and that's what happens in these sort of tournaments. But the drops catching was a concern. It was only in November that in the semi-final and the final that Australia's fielding were one of the main reasons that they ultimately won the 50-over World Cup. It is strange that they dropped so many catches. Many of them were difficult, but it's not what you would expect from an Australian side. I thought it was curious, the decision to bowl first, in that both of Australia's last two games, when the consensus was that batting first was the right thing to do. There has been a bubbling away, and you never know how much to take into account of this, but David Warner, in a press conference just before the last couple of days, revisited the whole sandpaper gate issue and was talking about how he'd been sort of copping the brunt of it. There is this looming fear that, because he's now retired from international cricket, a book that he is preparing is about to hit the shelves at some stage, and everyone's wondering, what is he going to say? Because there's this feeling of, surely there were more people aware of the fact that the sandpaper was occurring, other than the three that were just sort of involved. And so I don't know whether that sort of thing destabilises the team. I suspect it probably doesn't, but there was that bubbling away a little bit. And for whatever reason, the Australians were just slightly off.
Paul, just one quick question on that, because we've observed it and we've enjoyed Australians' dominance with the game. But do you think Darren Lehmann was a negative influence on that suddenly stop starts for top kind of situation to the team?
Well, I think when Darren Lehmann was appointed as coach, it was off the back of Mickey Arthur. There'd been the homework gate thing, and I think that they tried to change Australian cricket too quickly. Australian cricket's always been a very alpha male dominated, the men's side of like, we don't do subtlety. We just smack sixes and we bowl bouncers, and statistics are for nerds and we don't care. They tried to change that a little bit. They probably went a bit too far. And there was a kind of a relief. Oh, Buff's here. We can forget about all that. We can just go back to smacking the ball everywhere. And then there was that kind of arms race that then ensued around reverse swing. The Australians' on-field behaviour became even more antagonistic. Darren Lehmann did bring a World Cup in 2015. So I think the start of his regime was successful and the players really welcomed it. He probably stayed on a little bit too long, and the last bit of it was a little bit unfortunate. So that's how I'd probably characterise his period in charge.
And that's when the sandpaper incident occurred.
Yeah, and it was in the, it was even before sandpaper occurred. That was the most ill-tempered series I can ever recall. There was almost a fight between David Warner and Quinton de Kock in the off the field. The South African fans were behaving disgracefully to Candace Warner, David Warner's wife. They were, some of them were wearing inappropriate masks and were refused entry. Cricket South Africa then insisted that these people were allowed into the ground. There was an atmosphere that I've never known like it before. And then the Australians then idiotically took it to the next level, stupidly, cheatingly, not being aware of the fact that 38 South African cameras were focused on them with the strong intention of trying to find out what was going on. I'm sure both sides were doing some illegitimate things, but the Australians took it to that next level, and then we've all seen what came out about it. So it is strange that David Warner would bring it up again in this last week when we're now, 7 years since that we're still talking about it. I'm sure Cricket Australia is desperate to leave it behind. But that book that he writes is going to be, as soon as it's released, every journalist is going to be turning to the right pages and saying, is he going to throw some other players under the bus? It's going to be very intriguing.
Tanmay, you've been known to give those very blunt remarks about the game, the players and the team. Do you think there'll be more names, as Paul Bennett rightly says, thrown under the bus?
Look, David Warner and his personality, he's been out there. He's been very vocal. He doesn't shy away from it. Even when he was in Sunrisers, he wasn't afraid to, talk about the management then, Tom Moody and other management. So I wouldn't be surprised. It's not out of him to not say it. But boy, if he opens those kind of wounds, there was an article I read during that period of time where there was a culture among Australian cricket at win at any cost. I thought after that sandpaper gate, that culture changed. They've always had this mentality of winning at any cost. And sometimes it's just the nature of the beast. You want to win and then you take it too far. But it cost a few careers. Now I'm really looking keenly, just like Paul said, I want to read what he writes, because when he goes at it, there'll be a lot more coming at it. So whether he's going to be subtle about it or whether he's going to put a hand grenade just underneath his feet remains to be seen.
That's Tanmay Mishra, that's a nice way to put it. Will he self-detonate himself along with the entire group? Or will it just be one of those nice, sweet books? But that's what we look forward to as cricket romantics. We love to read every biography with the same zest and fervor as it is written for. Well, that's all we had time on Cricket Predicta. The next show we'll talk about the top gainers, the top movers, the top shakers of this T20 World Cup. And also there's an upcoming series not far away for India.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.